Hello everyone, I am Rachel with Ruby Lane and I am here in Pacific Grove, California at the Grovian Doll Museum. I am so excited for our next presentation. It is called 4 Centuries of Wax Dolls. We are going to learn everything about wax dolls and see some incredible examples. If you saw our Rose Percy program yesterday, that should have gotten you pretty juiced to learn everything that we need to know, plus more, about wax dolls. So I am going to bring in Michael Countess of the Grovian Doll Museum. Hello.
Hi, Rachel.
Thank you for having us
Lane.
here.
Oh, we're delighted to have you here.
Thank you so much. And these wax dolls are incredible. The first thing I want to ask before we dive right in is, what is a wax doll?
That is a really excellent question. Just the subject matter of W-A-X, wax. What is wax? What is it made out of? Right away we think of wax as beeswax, but the reality is it's so many different things. It is whale fat, it's beef fat, it's just about any kind of substance that could be created into a waxy substance. But when I think of wax dolls, of what most people are thinking, it would be paraffin, which actually we should be calling them paraffin dolls, because that's what it really is, which is a petroleum-based product. Paraffin wasn't invented until 1830, which is very interesting because right about then, that's when the wax boom starts. But previous to that, it would be beeswax, and it would be wax from whale fat, beef fat, etc. And that would be much, earlier time. The formulas, nobody knows all the formulas for these dolls. The people that made them knew. And there were all kinds of additives besides the fats and the paraffin that each maker put into them. You asked me earlier today, 4 centuries of wax dolls?
I did say that.
Yes. So here we have 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, 20th century. We are a little remiss because we could have called it 5 centuries if we had something from this century. One of the oldest dolls in this collection is a wax doll. Now, it's not for everybody's taste, but I personally do not care. If you like it, great. If you don't, that's okay too. I see her as the ultimate survivor. So we've set this up today in the round, just because, and it's not in a chronological order. It's just as we do our displays here, it's mostly set up in how it looks pretty. So come with me, and we're going to go back to the 17th century. And this is one of our oldest dolls that we have. And it is a continental doll, so it could be Spanish or it could be Italian, but it's most likely Spanish because of the clothes. And this is one of the oldest surviving complete riding habits. So she's got her panier that would become all the rage in the 18th century, but this was for riding. So this little girl would have been full regalia riding side saddle. Not only would she be dressed, her horse would be dressed too. So it would all be dressed to match. And she's very, very delicate. Here's the thing about wax dolls. Wax works go back to the 16th century. It was around, effigies were a way to preserve the way people look. If you went to Westminster Abbey, there's a lot of 17th century figures of people and there's figures of Queen Elizabeth I that have survived in wax. So wax is more durable than you think if it's taken care of. The most famous, of course, wax worker that any of us know would be Madame Tussaud. And she started out very young learning wax work. She actually taught the royal family, the French royal family, waxworks. She taught Louis XVI's sister Elizabeth to do waxworks. She also had the unfortunate job, whether she liked it or not, to mortalize Marie Antoinette's severed head. And that piece survived, I think, until 1924, and that was destroyed in a fire. But there are photographs of the work. It was a way to honor, if you lost a baby, they would make a model of the baby. So there's a lot of religious idols involved in. So whoever made this probably also made church figures. And then this is a doll. She has everything is still with her except her shoes. And I would imagine she had probably a wonderful pair of boots that were lost long ago. Now, the importance of sharing your dolls, I want to talk about this. So I took this off the wall, and I hadn't done it in a while. And I looked inside of the case, and there were a couple little mildew spots. And I realized that sometimes I have to let the girls out and let them have a little air circulation. So she had 3 or 4 days of air circulation, and I have to remember that it's great that it has an airtight so that pests don't get in, etc., but she still needs air circulation. So we dealt with that. Remember, your airtight cases are not necessarily a good thing. Sometimes open your doors, let a little air come in. We're not far from the sea, so there's a certain amount of moisture in the air.
There is, yes. That's important to remember. A lot of times we forget that.
We forget that because you think that, it's better for them to be in. Now, I happen to love her face because she's basically a character doll. Hundreds of years before there was even the thing such as a character doll movement.
Okay.
So this is the 17th century. So we're 1685. So let's move to the 18th century, which we have to go around.
If you're here live with us, comment on the video, share the video. We are learning all about wax dolls. So we just had somebody comment to say, my favorite kind of wax doll is a poured wax doll.
Okay, we'll get to that. And I agree with them. But we'll get to that in the chronological order.
Oh, good.
So we're in now we're in the 18th century. So where do you see phenomenal 18th century dolls survive? And actually, a nice number of them were dollhouse dolls. Because a dollhouse itself is a place to preserve a doll. If you think about it, you can close the door of a dollhouse and it could stay closed for 100 years. So this is the Count and Countess, and they live in a Spanish house. And I believe that they are actually made of beeswax, because remember, paraffin hasn't been invented yet. That's not coming down until 1830. So even though he looks like a farmer, they are the Count and Countess that live in a grace and favor cottage. And David is going to give you a show later this week, I believe, of where these dolls actually live. They've come out for this.
We're excited for that.
But these are beeswax, I believe, and I believe they also have the eyes are made out of beads. So they take a little bead and insert that to create. So mostly when you see 18th century wax dolls, they're going to be dollhouse dolls. There are, of course, other dolls that survive, but the most of them are going to be dollhouse dolls.
So
that being said, these are very rare dolls.
They're very rare, and
Yeah.
look at those faces. They're just so, what people might say, ugly, and that's why we love them.
Well, I think that they were meant to be characters. They were not meant to be, but I hate to break it to the audience. These are probably 40-year-olds because they aged differently.
Quicker.
then. Yes, they did, and the lifespan was different. So this is the 18th century. Let's move to the dawn of the 19th century.
Which is the 1800s.
So we're right on with this girl. We're right on about we're about 1800. The world is in turmoil. We read history books and we don't really get the concept of how much turmoil there was. But you had the French Revolution, the Napoleonic Wars, many craftspeople, they dropped like flies. So even a thing such as a doll business or a waxworks, they were in jeopardy. So a wax doll, or really honestly any doll from this period, is very rare. Mm-hmm. And this is just an amazing survivor, original dress. Now,
how is that hair inserted?
It's actually a wig. So she is a solid wax with blue eyes, but it's actually a wig. Mm. Now this could be because it was a doll, it was cheaper than inserting the wax. I do know the secret of how to reroute wax dolls. I'm not going to tell you because then I'd have to kill you. But it's very labor intensive. It takes time to do it. And this may have been a wig too, because perhaps they lost the people that knew how to do that work. Right. Over 600,000 people were killed in the French Revolution. And I do believe that this is a French wax doll. I've had one other in our career that was similar to this, and it was the same model, same costume. Now here's the decision that at some point we're going to have to make. I love original clothes, but it's literally just falling. Mm-hmm. And it's so delicate, and the silk was so fragile, and her basic tummy is coming out. So at some point we're going to have to think about what to do.
Little conservation.
Conservation. Wonderful. But we'll let her stay this way as long as she can. And then eventually when she's down to her undies, then we'll have to make a decision. So here we're at the 19th century. So we're going to, 1800. So let's go to about 1830. And solid waxes are very expensive. And I should also tell the audience that wax dolls, when they were new, were the most expensive dolls. And it's because of the labor, it's because of the lifelike quality, all of those things factored in, and the appeal to the public. Mm-hmm. So you had to come up with a cheaper solution than a solid wax. So what they came up with was wax overs. So you could call them, the official name is wax over. You could also call it a dipped wax if you want. So this is a paper mache form that's then dipped in wax. Okay. Now these were cheaper than a full wax. But one thing I want to point out to you, there's nothing cheap about this wax doll's clothes, because I want you to look at the detail of the embroidery work on this. This is superb. I mean, I believe that this is an English doll, and the English were known for their incredible white work, and it's very devotional. I mean, it's I think one of the finest garments that we have as far as workmanship. Wow. in any category. So these were very available. You could go to the Bartholomew Fair and pick these up for probably not much money. And then, of course, we talked about earlier today, boys with dolls. Here's a molded hat with a wax over. Wonderful clothes. I think that these are completely undervalued. I really do. And if you like historic items, this is a wonderful way to collect. And this is also too, now it's not my favorite doll, but in our club that we belonged with, this is a Toffling with what we call an Alice head wax over. And now we're now into the 1850s. Everyone loves this doll. There's something about it. And I think it has to do with the size of it, and that it's just huge. It's a Toffling. Mm-hmm. And I think that, you can see that would have a great appeal to children also.
She is fun.
She's fun.
So all three of these are the wax over.
Wax overs.
Okay.
So they're all wax overs, and then they'd have various combinations of limbs. Don't get hung up on, you have a wax over head, and he's got wooden arms and legs and midsection. She's got leather and a cloth body. There's any combination that an assembler, because we don't know who made them at this early era. They were assembled, whatever the assembler put together with it, that you want to have the pieces be of the period, but they assembled them. So let's go into poured wax. Now we've looked at Olga before, but let me tell you, if you want some poured wax,
this is the one.
She's the mother lode of poured wax, and she's a Montanari, and it's called Olga's doll because of it belonged to a Russian family, and you can watch the other video that we have of this. I think it's called Christmas Gifts or
Treasures of Christmas Past.
Treasures of Christmas Past, which you'll get more information. But I'll just talk about. Here we have a full supply of paraffin. There is a lot of paraffin in this doll. And when you see the pinkness of this doll, this was desired. This was a healthy baby with full circulation. I mean, beautiful, healthy baby. This was not an accident. Some people think that the dolls have changed color. Wax dolls can fade slightly, but not every single limb. It's not going to turn. Montanari, what they worked in, before they decided to do their doll business, they worked in effigies, making full figures. And that would be tiresome, and if you think about it, it'd be a lot easier to make dolls with the appeal of dolls. So this, you've got a lot of poured wax. But we do know how old she is. So this is 1887. So I have...
Look at those wonderful glass eyes.
I have skipped a little bit. So let's go back over here in time. And we're going to go into the 1860s. This is a phenomenal face. Look at that character face. And this is a beautiful child that we have right now. We're working on conserving its costume. And she is a Quaker girl.
The lips are wonderful.
Yeah, and it's a maker. I couldn't tell you who made it. It's not marked, but it's very unusual face. But I do love this beautiful original decoration. This decoration, by the way, a child or a collector, you can wash it off. This has it's paraffin, and then it has a finish over it, and the finish is shellac. So shellac was used for furniture, and that's what's encased the paint. So in order to get this off, you have to kind of remove the shellac, and then you're going to lose all your facial features. And you can see that most English waxes have gorgeous eyes. A lot of people don't know that in England, they were one of the main glass eye makers. They exported eyes to France to put in French dolls. So that's why you'll see gorgeous eyes in early wax dolls.
Just wonderful. If you guys are tuning in, we are here live at the Grovian learning all about wax dolls.
And this is a wonderful piece too. This girl, totally original and a wonderful face. But look at, she does not have rooted hair. She's actually got painted hair, which is really kind of unusual.
Oh, I love it.
Beautiful original costume, about 1865, 66. But I also want you to see, this is a wonderful, this actually is Rose Percy's doll. And she just loaned it out to be in this exhibit. But again, a totally original doll with the little bead eyes, but very, very interesting. And then I think we could go over to this one. We're still on the right time frame. This is one of my favorites. And I believe that this one is a Meech, because we were talking about yesterday with Rose, the long hair, and that's one of their signatures. And she's got a little bit of a lifeline coming that shows through. But here's the thing. In order for me to really, really say absolutely, is she a Meech, I'd have to see if her body's marked. I have no intention of ever removing her clothes. Even though this print looks wild, this is 1860s print. You've got your purple and your orange and your black, and then your basically lime green. If I removed this ribbon, I'll never get it back. So it's not...
And I love the matching in her hair.
Yes, and it's not that important to me to know that. I know that it's a good doll. And as I've said before, clip, when you see a doll that's marked, clip that, put it in your files on your computer or wherever, and then you can start to piece it together and you see the similarities. Yes. And that'll help more than destroying a doll. We've shown, and then we should go here. This is a wonderful piece. And I just love this doll. And this came up in an estate a few years ago. And I wasn't invited to the party, and someone else got this doll, even though I wanted it for years and years and years. But guess what? It came up on Ruby Lane, and I pushed the button.
Really?
Yes.
You got this on Ruby Lane?
Yes.
Wow.
And it's a wonderful piece. I mean, it's completely...
Look at that hat.
It's completely original. She's dressed as a Madame Polichinelle, and I think it's just it's right up our alley as far as...
She's wonderful. I'm so glad you got it.
Yeah, and original jewelry, wig. But I want to talk about this too, Rachel, because this is very important for the audience to hear. If you're the kind of collector or the kind of person that nothing can ever go wrong in your life, you can't handle it, you can't handle imperfections and flaws, do us all a favor and don't collect wax dolls, because the very nature of what they are fragile and delicate. They're almost like we have one rose in our garden that has bloomed, and I've been watching it through its whole cycle. And we had a big rainy night last night and this morning, and that little rose is holding on. It's starting to lose its petals, but it still has its beauty. That's how I feel about wax dolls. If you can't handle a little botch this or a nick that, finding one that's flawless, there are some. I mean, that's true, there are some. But finding one that's flawless, it's an unrealistic expectation, and you're not going to enjoy it because so I'm very with them. I'm forgiving of things as long as the whole presentation gives me what I want.
Right.
And
love that sentiment. It's when you collect wax, you need to relax.
that's a good one. That's and here's we talked earlier about Frederick and baby dolls. This is the 19th century, mid 19th century version of a baby doll. This is a baby, and this is probably a Parati. It's a little different Parati because usually they have a kind of like a little pursed mouth, like they're ready to be fed, and little sleepy eyes. But this is just a nice little Parati. When these were new, these were called wax rag babies. We today call them wax dolls. When they were new, they were called wax rag babies because they had wax heads and they had these rag bodies and, stuffed, cuddly little body. And that was a nice thing for a child to have. So, these were
play dolls.
These were play dolls. They're play dolls, but they were an expensive play doll. And this one I have nude to give you an example of. Okay, so look at the color of her head, her arms, her legs. Okay, we're working in our workshop, and today we're going to make right legs. And tomorrow we're going to make left legs. So with wax dolls, you're going to find different colorations because they didn't care. Today we're making rights and tomorrow we're making lefts, and no one's going to look in the toy shop and say, that leg is pinker than that one. So you can tell these shoes have never been removed, but it's just the way it is. So, and again, if you collect wax, relax.
Right. That's our new motto here.
And then I want to show you, this is a Parati baby. And then these two, Parati was very, prolific in the baby department. The Lucy Peck was another maker in England. And she had a wonderful shop that there are photographs that exist of her shop. And she did a lot of historic figures. And here we have some gentlemen from the court of Henry VIII. And of course, these were done in the probably 1890s. But they are amazing portraiture of people. And that one, I believe, is a good-looking version of Henry VIII. And again, you can see they have the original clothes, but they are not perfect. And, they'll stay that way until, it basically falls apart.
Well, they're looking pretty darn good.
Now, the one thing I want to talk to you about, too, is because of the cost factor with wax dolls, because they were an expensive doll, they would get expensive things. And here's a fantastic example of a superb costume. I mean, this costume is right out of Charles Frederick Worth's workshop. I mean, it has all of the, look at the details.
It just makes
of
your
this.
heart skip a beat.
I mean,
Look at
the
this.
details are extraordinary. And you really, the one thing about wax is they have little tiny waists, even smaller than fashion dolls. And you could get this silhouette of, 1885 and show the lacing in the back too. It's just superb.
Look at that.
And unfortunately, because waxes are fragile, they might not necessarily survive. A lot of their clothes and accoutrements get given to other dolls because they don't survive, which is sad. But again, that's, I guess, kind of very Victorian to reuse things. And so we should probably go to the 20th century. So we've shown this before in the Children's Corner video that we did. But this is a Kuno Auto Dressel wax. It's a wax over arms and a solid wax head. But look, it has flirty eyes.
Oh,
and
flirty
teeth.
eyes. Look at that.
And
molded teeth?
And molded teeth.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Kuno Auto Dressel was one of the oldest doll making
Look at the
firms
box
that we
says
know of.
wax dolls.
And it says wax doll. So obviously this was made for America or England. But it's just a wonderful piece that has survived with its original clothes. But here's also too a wonderful piece that always blows everybody's mind. This is a poured wax by Kessner and Company.
It's a Kessner.
This is a Kessner. It is that's a solid body, jointed. It's like a gigantic all-bis doll, but she's a good 14 inches tall. So that this survived is a miracle. And I always have her socks here because when we got her, she had a gorgeous pair of shoes. And one of them hit the ground and a bulldog devoured it instantly.
Oh, no.
So I have these socks to remind me that I have to find her a great pair of shoes.
She deserves it.
She deserves
Now
it.
that we know she's a Kessner, you can absolutely
Can't you
see
see
the
that?
similarities, of
And
course,
when
yeah.
you think of the doll Daisy, the famous Daisy 171, this is the same wig that Daisy has, but a little smaller. Complete Kessner product.
How, they didn't create very many of these.
I think that they did. I think that I think that whenever you see one of these survive, you have to know that there's hundreds, if not thousands, behind them. Time goes by, they're fragile. Even dolls that weren't fragile just didn't make it. I mean, we sometimes don't realize that when the doll makers made these dolls, they didn't anticipate that they'd be here 100 years from now.
They were
They would have done things differently.
They were for the season, and hopefully you'd get one next year.
Exactly. And I mean, we talked about earlier Naughty Bob and all the things that he could do. Think about what Naughty Bob could do to a wax doll. So we should go over and look at another Lucy Peck historical doll. Oh, sometimes you can date a doll by some body parts. So here, I'm not sure who made this doll, but she's got a great character face. But we can kind of tell that it's about 1885 because the arms are coming up and they're cut so that this doll could wear an evening gown such as that doll. So certain little details you can see how that would work. And of course, the shape of the arm, which looks kind of strange, actually helps the garment. So, and this one is definitely a lady because she's got her hair in a styling.
So interesting.
And if they're nude on the table, it's not that we have a whole bunch of nude dolls laying around. Their clothes are in conservation. You know, we try to do these things when we can. It's not easy to do it. It takes a lot of time and it's an expensive proposition. But if they have all nice things, we try to get them to the, and that leads me to, we'll come over here and look at this lady, which again is
she's wonderful.
This is a gorgeous Lucy Peck. And look how beautiful that is. And she has an original dress that looked like it was dragged through the bushes. So we're going to give it, you know, the full treatment because she is so incredible. I think really
just
beautiful.
Incredible.
And this rooted hair,
that hair,
that's just spectacular.
We've said before there is no such thing as a bad hair day at the Grovian.
we do the best.
Positive.
We do the best we can. And so this is Lucy Peck. So this is probably 1890s. Wow. And this is, you know, again, in the 1890s, there was a huge nostalgia for the 18th century because that was a world away. But she's known for her beautiful...
She has this wonderful woman face.
Yes.
Have we moved a little bit from the baby look
Oh, yeah, because, no, this is a portrait doll. This is a lady, it's meant to be Marie Antoinette. And then, stepping out of order, I didn't show you her. We purchased her from a collection. At first, I really didn't like this doll. And then she's really started to grow on me. And then I named her Penelope. And then it all made sense. And I mean, her clothes, at first I didn't like them. And then I just had to stop and look. This is really phenomenal. So this is probably about 1845, 1850. And she's just she looks like she just stepped out of the mini-series Victoria. You could see her in the kitchen. So she's actually got a lot of fans.
She has a wonderful face.
And then let me show you, speaking of Victoria, these two. So I put them out for your coming here. And David said, well, where did Victoria and Albert come from? And I just said, well, you know, I had them stashed away. And again, they have wonderful costumes and wonderful bodies. And they're off their bodies because it's less likely to have an accident if they're off the body while we're doing the work that we need to do.
Gosh, these are amazing.
So, I mean, they are Victoria and Albert, a doll maker's version. I would imagine that they had, at one point, you can kind of see that she had darker hair, and it's faded as time has gone by.
Her face.
But she's a wonderful piece.
Incredible.
So I kind of bounced around. So now I'm going to take you to the 20th century. So yesterday we talked about Rose Percy, and you brought up Gladys McDowell. Now I had heard of Gladys McDowell because there's a famous Gladys McDowell Doll Club. I'd heard of her, and when we first started in dolls, her company, you know, that the descendants had a doll business, so I'd heard the name Gladys McDowell. I'd never seen a doll by Gladys McDowell until I was at a UFDC convention, and Diane Hoffman put together, with the turn of the century, a phenomenal Christmas exhibit.
Oh, that exhibit was
yes, and that
heard
should
across the world.
That
Was
should have been
wonderful.
filmed and talked about. And in the exhibit was a phenomenal Santa, and in its arm he was holding a wax doll.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I'd never seen a wax doll like that. And Sally Freeman, who was with the company at the time, said, "That's by Gladys McDowell." And I thought, oh my God, I've never seen a doll like that. So fast forward for them to now. This is
you can tell.
Gladys McDowell
Yes.
wax doll.
It absolutely is.
And she was a phenomenal artist. I don't care if a doll is 400 years old or 60 years old. If it's a great doll, it's a great doll. I mean, it's got beautiful face. It's so unique. She knew the art of inserting hair, and she gave it this kind of strawberry blonde. And what I like about it is it's very Rose Percy-like. You know, somehow there was an influence, you know, as any kind of artist is influenced by what's going on with them at the time. So I believe that she created this doll at the time that she was working on Rose. She had full access to Rose. I don't think it's a mold of Rose, but you know, it's
She
got
might
a
have
lot
drawn
of.
some inspiration.
She drew some inspiration. Now, the only thing I have against it is I think she's a little squatty. So I would like to see her legs a
Bless
little
her
longer,
heart.
and her. But you know what? Sometimes when you dress them, that all changes. And actually, she's probably got the perfect child proportions. But you know, when we look at wax dolls, they're all elongated because that's what makes clothes look better on them when they. So this is our version, our doll. Yeah, of course, there's other dolls from the 20th century, such as Marie Antoinette. She would be, or late early 20th century. But she is our representative
When you
of the
saw
20th
her,
century.
yes, when you saw her at the exhibit, did you immediately go out and try to find one?
No, but I conjured it.
Yeah.
Eventually.
You put it out into the universe.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, it was not expensive. So, I mean, I think with collectors, there's a need sometimes to have the thing that's expensive. Expensive doesn't necessarily mean it's better or worse or that was an inexpensive doll with a future. So it was, in a way, I never like to use the word investments, because when you say investments, there should be a return on it. Well, the return is that you get to enjoy it.
Enjoyment.
But I felt with that if nobody's collecting up this really master work, then it's a great opportunity.
Absolutely.
And by the way, waxes used to, a long time ago, be expensive dolls, because there's one doll on the table that a friend of mine bought from an old-time dealer in London, and that old-time dealer felt that Bis dolls were new dolls. To her, old antique dolls, this is a doll dealer, antique dolls were papier-mâchés, woods, wax, chinas, because those were old. Bis dolls to her were new, because she grew up and saw them in shops, so they weren't old. I think Rose Percy has done a lot to revive the interest in wax dolls, but still, this is an area for collectors out there. If you like them, it's wide open. I think you can buy a absolutely outstanding example for not a ton of money compared to other things. So it's a great.
It's a good time. It's a good time to be collecting wax dolls.
I have personally always. They're one of my favorite categories of dolls to collect. So if you like them, why not?
Can you show us real quick how you like to swoop in?
Oh.
That's what he does.
You know what? Also, too, I would never push my way into anything, because I think things should flow to you, but I can hold my ground. You know, when the ones are coming in, I can hold my ground. It's like, so you have to go in and swoof.
You have to go in and swoof.
Yeah. And you can, because you know what? Don't have any regrets.
Right.
Because the regret for us is not, oh, what did we buy, or did we pay too much for it, or blah, 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 all that. What we regret is what we didn't do.
Absolutely.
That's the thing that you, because, like this
Ooh,
one,
it just nails it in
I
sometimes.
didn't regret that I didn't buy this doll. I didn't have an opportunity to buy it. But the minute I did, there's no hesitation.
Boom.
It's boom. Yes.
Wonderful.
Oh, and then before you go, you have to see
we
these.
didn't talk about this lady
Oh.
with the wonderful bosom either.
She is a wonderful all original. I think that she's, again, also a meat. She has a full head of hair. She's very Rose Percy-like, except that she's later and totally original costume.
Look at this
And
costume.
you know, those are not real bosoms there. That's
It's
padding.
It's
of
yes.
just-
Well,
Uh-huh.
you know, a padded.
Yeah. A
It's
little
okay
pad.
to use a little padding once in a while.
So it, and again, she's a wonderful thing. She's got the early cobalt eyes, and those were made in England. A lot of people don't realize that's where they came from. But I want to show you too some of my favorites. These little charmers are very hard to get, and it's a pair of twins, or not twins, but dressed identically but in different colors. And they're like little poured waxes, miniature poured waxes with painted eyes. And they're some of my favorites. These are hard to get because we have our friend Carol Cameron in the United Kingdom, that she's got the market cornered on these. And when I've seen hers, you know, you just drool with all the wonderful, but we've at least got two, so
It's nice to have a little example of everything.
Yes.
So we went through the 4 centuries of wax. We discussed the different kinds of wax and doll making. As far as making the wax dolls, what is something that wax dolls have taught the world through their production?
A lot of things. I mean, I think that one thing that when you really think about wax dolls, the fragility of life. So as they're using the rose example, but they're fragile, they must be taken care of. I think it was an industry. Yesterday, you and I were talking about because you know the internet always has to have criticism, and there was a Worth gown that someone wanted to know how much it costs. And I could tell you that it would be the equivalent to about $10,000 in today's money. And someone was offended by that, which I take it a totally different way. I think if you've got $10,000 and you can buy a beautiful gown, let's start at the beginning. It starts with the silkworm and the person that supplies the food, then the silk, then the weaver, then the middleman that sells it, then the truck driver that drives it. All of these expensive dolls, wax dolls, represent livelihoods for many, many people. It is not it's not an extravagance, but I think that they're really a documentation of another time. And when I also look at them, I feel whenever I see wax dolls, I think they're so Victorian. And I mean that in the nice way. They're Victorian of another
They're whimsical.
time.
We saw them in our whimsy seminar.
Exactly. They're whimsical. So, I mean, you have a lot of people that could open businesses using small spaces, because I'm trying to get David to do a little seminar on how to make candles
We were
for
just going to say,
dollhouse.
speaking of wax,
Yeah.
we have a little tutorial
I'm trying
coming
to
up.
get
We
in
hope.
that he could show you that you could, if you had a stove, if you had the drive, you had the speed, you could create a product that you could sell. So that's what they represent.
Right.
When I look at a doll like this, I see, or any of them, I see that the seamstresses that made the clothes for them. I mean, it's all a good thing. It's all.
It's all a
and
good
also
thing.
too, I want to point out this. These dolls also have a huge connection to the history of the United States of America, because we had a test done on Rose Percy's K-pock in her body, and it came from Georgia. So that meant that the cotton in these dolls were picked by slaves in America. So there's a whole, I mean, you can approach this in any way.
So many ways.
So many ways of you know, their historical background. And you know, frankly, to me, the most important thing is I love them for the beauty. I love them also too that they're survivors.
They are. They
It's
are
not easy to
survivors.
survive in this world.
We respect these dolls so
Yes.
much because they tried, and they made it, and they are here, and they are strong, and they are proud.
And I also look at this table and I think it's a bouquet. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just a bouquet.
It's
of
just a wonderful bouquet.
Different flowers and there's a. We'll post it. I have a wonderful poem that was actually given to us by Catherine Weatherly, who we talked about earlier, one of her friends who was older than her. And it's the story of wax dolls. And we'll post that. If you'll do it.
We
'Cause
will.
You know how to do
we
it.
will post it. Yes, I know how to post a few things. So we are here live at the Grovian. If you loved this, then share it. Stay tuned because we have a couple more programs for you today. We just learned so much about wax dolls. Michael, thank you so much.
Bye-bye, Ruby Lane.
You can shop dolls on Ruby Lane by typing wax right in the dolls lane. And
I'll be
remember,
there.
yes, we're all going to go over there right now. So
Okay.
you never regret what you bought. You regret what you didn't buy. And when you
Exactly.
collect doll wax, you relax.
Wax and relax.
We love it. We'll see you
Bye-bye.
guys soon.
Bye-bye.